Agenda, we might not get to all of these again, but I wanted to at least cover some basic topics here. Identifying your audience, who you're going to send to, the difference between an email template and a style sheet. I wanted to at least list some things about email content and email deliverability, things like that. How to monitor emails if you're sending emails out of Andar. And then I do have some tips and tricks that are scattered throughout this as well. First step, and this is good. This is one of Andar's really strong suits. It's also difficult, but it's way more robust than some of the other marketing tools out there like Constant Contact and MailChimp. So, for example, identifying the group that you want to send to. Andar has a lot of data typically in there, right? It's got financial data and volunteer data and maybe event occurrence data. It might have all kinds of other things that you've been tracking over years and years and years. All of that data is now available for you to be able to send an email out to somebody. So, for example, when I was at my first United Way, we decided that we were going to do a targeted email send to all of our quote unquote education agencies. So donors from our education agencies. So for example, if somebody donated to Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, any of those agencies that were our partner agencies, we were going to reach out to them and say, thanks for giving to our education partners. Have you looked at what United Way is doing for education in the Roanoke Valley, for example? So we were able to kind of use that designation information as a way to identify a segment that we wanted to send a targeted email out to. That was only possible because of all of the data that we have in Andar. So think about on this first piece, think about who you want to send to. Try and get that segment in your head. Be really specific about that segment. It's really hard for database people to get a request for a mailing list that's something like, give me all of the donors from last year. There's a lot that needs to be specified in that statement. Do you want local donors or local and out of area? Do you want employee donors or do you want individual donors or do you want both individual and employee donors? So be pretty specific when you're thinking about who you're sending to and kind of specify very specifically what makes up this email send. It could make a big difference in the list that you get back. If you are the database person, I would look at that list and try and find people that you know should be in that list and know that shouldn't be in that list. So maybe you've got this one Tocqueville donor who doesn't really give you any money, but you consider that person a Tocqueville donor. Is that person in this list if that's who is supposed to be in there? So always have a couple of those weird case scenarios that you can spot check your data with to make sure that the actual segment that you're sending to is a pretty good representation of who you're attempting to send to. You can data mine that. You can manually populate mailing lists. There's lots of ways that you can do that. It's very, very typical that you have a data mining operation that goes out and selects a bunch of people, pulls them all together, and creates a mailing list for you. So again, all of the data in Andar is available for you at that point. You just have to know how to pull it in. If you're not familiar with data mining, we're doing a basics data mining session tomorrow. So Sally, I'm leading it, and Sally Hartlib is going to be in there as well. So you can join us for that if you want to learn a little bit more about data mining. But it's really common that you use a data mining operation to populate a mailing list, and then you can send that out. Or maybe you've got a corporate company that you're going to send an email out to all employees. That one doesn't require a data mining operation. There's a pretty simple option for that. I'll show you that in a little bit. But you can send emails from Andar out to individual accounts, warehouses of people, employees of an organization, or you can create mailing lists in all kinds of different ways. Okay. One little caveat there is if you are sending emails out and you do want to track clicks and reads, side note, I'll come back to that in a second. If you do want to track clicks and reads, The only way that those clicks and reads are going to be available are when you use a mailing list and a mailing list usage. So if you send to a warehouse of people or an individual account, you're not going to be able to see that information. The way we've built it, that mailing lists and mailing list usages are the only place that you're going to be able to see how clicks and reads are going. That being said, the state of clicks and reads, if you're basing your email marketing success on clicks and reads, it's your those stats aren't going to be accurate anymore. It used to be that that was a really good way to see how effective your email marketing was. But with all of the email security stuff that's happening across all kinds of different companies, clicks and reads get overinflated very, very quickly and they're not super accurate. So just as a general note, it's not an Andar thing, it's not a MailChimp or a Constant Contact thing, it is across the board. Clicks and reads are less accurate than they used to be. So just take those stats that you get on those mailing list usages in Andar, take those with a grain of salt. Okay, email templates. And here's where I might start bouncing over into Andar to show you some of the things. So email templates are designed to be used over and over and over again. So if you've got one email, maybe it's a kickoff email that you're going to use for all of your companies and it's got the same kind of text. Maybe there's a little bit of personalization in there, like a Dear Nate kind of thing. But in general, it's the same language. That's a really good candidate for an email template. Pledge confirmation is another really good idea for using an email template. It's the same email over and over and over again, just with slightly different details in it. So email templates, I want you to think of reusable email content that goes across years, across companies. It's something that gets used over and over and over again. So that's what an email template is. In Andar, if you go to communications, email, and email templates in your main menu, you might not see anything in this top section. The top section's for all of your recent email templates, and all of the ones down below are all of the email templates that exist in Andar, either by default or that somebody has created. So you might have a lot. One thing I want to point out on this usage over here, anything that has a usage that is anything other than general, so anything that says anything other than general in this column means it's an automated email template. So these guys all get kicked out automatically when somebody takes some action in Andar. So these are not really the ones that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about anything that has a usage of general. And if you're creating a new email template by clicking the add button, we're going to be talking about all of these that have a usage of general. These are going to be like your kickoff emails, the ones that you are manually sending out. You're going to send to a group of employees manually, or you're going to create a mailing list and send that out manually. It's not triggered by creating a pledge or something like that. So just to say that again, anything that has a usage of anything other than general is going to be automated. Those guys we're not going to touch in this conversation. We're really just talking about the manual sends that you get. So in this case, if I wanted to create an email template, I could click the add button. I can give it a description, type in whatever you want to type in up there, give it a description. Down below, you've got the body of the email where you can type in whatever you want. You've got your subject. You can give it a subject. That's going to be the subject that comes across whenever you send your emails. I think that's pretty straightforward for your email templates. But the idea behind these guys is that this template would be used over and over and over again. It's generally not something that you would need a one-time use template. Templates are generally going to be something that you're going to use over and over again. Okay. So if that's the case, then you can create a template. Let's see if I've got a good one. So this is a good one. So we've got note variables in here. So these are like mail merge variables. So if you want to say hi first name or whatever, use your note variables in your body of your email so that you don't have to change this all the time. You know, type out your email however you want, put all of the content. You can put pictures in there. Note variables, again, are your mail merge variables. So lots of note variables that you can insert into the body of your email. If you want to put an image in there, you have to first load that image into your file library, but then you can insert images from your file library, put those images right in. Um, you can also put videos, but the caution on videos, you can do that with this little button down here, this little play button. If you're going to insert a video, you have to put the link from like Vimeo or YouTube in there. So caution there. Most email clients, Outlook, Gmail, Apple, whatever Apple Mail, a lot of the email clients don't allow auto playing. So you can put a link in there. It might have a little thumbnail, but as soon as they click on that, they get redirected to YouTube or whatever. That's a function of the email client, not necessarily of Andar or anything else. Email clients generally don't allow you to play videos directly inside of their own software. So you can insert all kinds of content in here. It's just a text editor. If you've ever worked with a text editor before, that's the same idea. You've got bolding and italicizing and underlining and all of that kind of stuff. You can change colors of text. So all of that's pretty straightforward. So first step is you would design an email template if it's going to be something that's going to be reused over and over again. The next piece is, so that's kind of the content of your email, or at least the template of that. Yeah. The next part is you typically want to apply a style to that. Because if I open that guy up and I click the view message, that's what it looks like by default. So it's really plain. It's not showing us anything. It looks like it's coming directly out of Outlook. Maybe that's the thing that you want. You don't want it to look like it's styled in any way, shape, or form. Just let it be plain text. If that's the case, you're fine. But if you want to apply a wrapper to that and maybe make it look a little bit prettier, you can apply a style sheet. So right above, right below your subject, you've got this style name. And if I choose a style sheet here, I'm just going to pull the United We Win style sheet. We're going to look at that one. If I hit the view message button, it looks a lot different. So instead of being that plain text, we've now got this little wrapper that the same exact content sits in. It's got a little header up here. It's got an image. It's got a footer. The other thing, I don't know if anybody caught or not, but when I didn't have a style sheet, the font was just Times New Roman. So in this case, we've now formatted, the style sheet has formatted the font for us. So the style sheet does all of that for us. So applying a style sheet makes the whole email itself look pretty. If I switch this over to the United We Fight email template and click View Message, here's a different, totally different template. Okay, so that one versus that one, right? So that's United We Win. That's United We Fight. So the style sheet is the wrapper. We can change images here. We can change the text in here. It takes a little bit of HTML coding, but it's not too bad. We can help you with that. But it really applies a different wrapper. So the style sheet applies the different wrapper to your email. Okay, so that's choosing a style sheet here. There are lots of style sheets that you can download from our support center. You can search for style sheet library and you should be able to find it. If you go to our website, once you log in, so it's support.andarsoftware.com. If you go to the downloads tab and you can go to the libraries on the left-hand side with style sheets, we have lots of style sheets that you can go and download. And there's a little filter up here. So we'll just filter this by email template. So there's our general blue email template, general orange email template, United We Win, United We Fight. So you can just download these guys and import them directly into your Andar if you don't already have them. Okay. So that's a style sheet. So we've got the content, we've created an email template, we've thrown in some note variables so we don't have to come back and change that next year. We've got a style sheet that makes it look pretty. There are all kinds of options that we can talk about here. Our documentation does a really good job of talking about how these different advanced, especially this advanced tab works. So really good documentation. I don't have time to go through all of these options, unfortunately, but there's some really good ones here. The one key thing is if you are going to be doing clicks and reads, you want to check this checkbox, track click through and reads. If you want this to create a communication log automatically in Andar, you can check that checkbox and then choose a subject code. There's some other stuff that's nice in this advanced tab. So again, I'll encourage you just for time's sake, I can't go through all of these, but there's some nice options that you can choose in here that will maybe help you out. Documentation lists all of that stuff pretty well. Okay, so we've created a template. We've talked about style sheets. I mentioned this in one other session here. I think it was in the e-pledge session as a tips and tricks. If you want all of your emails that you send out to have a consistent style sheet without having to choose a style sheet for every single email, go into your system preferences under under email and email general. Not everybody's going to have access to system preferences, so this might not apply to you. But for those of you that do have access to your system preferences, go under email, email general. There's this spot here that says what is the default email style sheet. So even if you don't choose a style sheet on a template, it's going to use whatever this guy is. So if you wanted to choose the United We Win email template for all of your emails, go choose it here rather than having to worry about putting it on every single template one by one by one. That way, if next year you decide to go with a different email template, or I'm sorry, an email style sheet, you can just change it here instead. And you don't have to worry about changing it on all of those other email templates that you've got. So this is a good tip and trick. Change your default style sheet to whatever you want it to be across the board. Keep your branding consistent. Okay, so let's see where I am in my PowerPoint here. Email templates, kickoff, reminder emails, abandoned pledges. Again, anything that you would be using over and over and over again. We talked about the usage other than general. Design your templates with reusability in mind. And what I mean by that is use note variables. Don't type in campaign, don't type in something like, are you ready for the 2024 campaign, right? 2024. Instead, use a note variable so that you don't have to go back and modify that email template later on. Um, a lot of maintenance can happen if you're not using those note variables. They are definitely your friend. Use those guys. Style sheets we talked about. So they apply the nice little pretty wrapper on the email that you're sending out. And then we talked about that system preference default style sheet. So rather than choosing a style sheet for every single email template, do it in your system preferences instead and just let it be. And then if you want to choose a different style sheet for one particular email, perfectly fine. Go ahead and do that. That will the style sheet on the template will override your system preference for that one template. Content of email. I won't go through a ton here. I've already talked a little bit about this, but a couple things here. Yeah, I already mentioned the HTML editor in Andar is just like web notes and articles. It's also similar to a Word doc, so you saw the bold and underline and all of that kind of stuff. Only insert images from your file library. So like I said, you want to upload any of your images to your file library and insert that in. If you're doing a video link, you have to do the Vimeo or YouTube, and there's a reminder that your email clients don't allow for autoplay. Just a general statement here, and I think this goes across all email platforms. Avoid any spammy content. So avoid any of that urgency or large dollar amounts or any of that kind of stuff in your email. That's a sure way to get your email blocked in spam. Also, one of the things that I see all the time, be really careful about spoofing email addresses. Spoofing email addresses used to be a very legitimate practice where you would say the sender is um, Nate Shuckers, but the actual email address was andarsoftware.com, right? It was, or info@andarsoftware.com. That's spoofing. You can't say that it's coming from Nate unless it's actually coming from Nate. So any spoofing emails, email security is much more strict than it used to be. So you always want to make sure that the sending email address matches the actual person's email address in that case. If it's going to be an info at, don't try and change it with a name. That will get you blocked for spam. So it's spoofing, and you'll get blocked for that kind of stuff. So be careful. Uh, Again, use your note variables. And then the last point, only because I've made this mistake myself, be careful with any auto logged in links. If you are putting a link in your email that says click here to log in and it's got a username and a password embedded in that, that's something that you can do in Andar. Be really careful about doing that. It's used to be much more common. It's still okay to do, but you want to be really careful with that. First off, if anybody ever intercepts that email, somebody outside of the company gets to that email, they click on that link, they now have access to whatever information is on the website for that particular person. If somebody forwards that email, so I forward the email that I got that has my personalized link in it, and I forward that to Chris. Chris clicks on it, he's now able to see all of my data that's in Andar. So just be careful about any of those auto logging in links. They are super convenient. They are pretty easy to mess up if you're not careful. So you could be sending, and this is where my personal experience came in. I sent an email out and I messed something up. So I sent an email to Bill, but it was actually Mary's username and password. So when Bill clicked on the link, he was able to see all of Mary's information. That's not good. That's a really bad thing as far as data quality is concerned, and it throws a lot of red flags out to your donors. So if you're using any of those auto logged in links, be really, really careful about that. Call out that it's a personalized link and make sure that you call out and say, do not forward this to anybody and all of that kind of stuff. So just be really careful. You've probably already thought about that, but be really careful if you're using those auto logged in links. All right, I'm going to grab a quick drink and I'm going to check questions here because I know I have a bad habit of not checking questions. So before we get on to this monitoring results thing, I'm going to take a swig of water and we'll check questions and see what we got there. All right, question from Ashley. With style sheets, is there a way that the images will be displayed in Outlook without having to download them? No, that one's also on your email client. It's a security thing. Most email clients don't display images right off the bat. You have to download them. If you ever pay attention, like Outlook is really specific about saying only download images if it's from a trusted source. So it's again not an Andar thing. It's not a it's truly an Outlook, or I'm sorry, it's an email client thing. So that's not on you. There's no way that you can get around that one, unfortunately. At least not that I know of, not that I've ever come across. Holly asked a little bit more about spoofing. Yeah, I can give you an example. So, for example, if I were to do something like this, okay? So if I were to send an email out, and I know we haven't really talked about this screen yet, but this is the sender's email address to be able to send an email out. So I put my name in the quotations. to make it look like it was coming from me, but this email address is not my email address. That is spoofing. There's a lot of technical stuff that happens in the background, but there's something in email called head code or header code. And each one of those email addresses has an account name. And if that account name doesn't match what's here, you're going to get flagged for spoofing. And if you do that enough, you could get in trouble with your email server. You could get blacklisted if you're not careful. It used to be a really common practice that people would do this. They would put like the CEO's name in here, and it would be coming from a totally random email address, just so it looked like it was coming from the CEO. That used to be common practice. You can't get away with that anymore. That is spoofing, and that will get flagged for spam because of that technical header code stuff. So that is what spoofing is. It's when a mismatch on the name here doesn't match the actual name that's on your email server for this email address. So hopefully that helped. Can you have a different, this is Barb, can you have a different sender email address and a different reply email? Yep. So that's one of those advanced fields on an email. There is a reply to. So if I send this out as me, so maybe I'm sending this as me, and I want to have it go back to somebody else, on the advanced tab of the template or the advanced tab of the send email step, you can have a separate reply to. So that way, if they do click reply from that email, it's not going to go back to me. It would go to whoever is in this reply to section there. So yes, you can have a different reply to person on there. Taryn, you had a question about how do we link or connect the email to a data mine list of donors. So that's if you get a chance, I'll answer the question, but I'm not going to get into a lot of detail because it's more of a data mining question. But if you get a chance, watch some of the data mining stuff because there's a lot to it. Ultimately, you create a data mining operation, and one of the steps in a DMO is save all of the people that you've just selected to a mailing list. So it's actually just a really simple box there that you say, all right, give me leadership people, give me volunteers that went to this volunteer opportunity, save all of those accounts to a mailing list. So it's one step, but I'll demo. I'm 100% sure I will be demoing that in our data mining operation conversation a little bit tomorrow morning, actually, tomorrow all day. So let's see. What is the, so Jordan, you're asking about the email. So if I go back into send email, this sender's email address, this is who's actually sending the email. So in this case, this would be coming from me. Maybe I'm going to send this email out. I have permission to send mass emails for my through my email server. My account has permissions. That's going to be the sender's email address. You don't want to, it can't be blank. It has to be something. So if it's coming from you, then it's your email address. If you have something like an info at that it's coming from, that's that email address there. So it's always got to be something. That's who's actually sending it from your email server. There are typically only certain accounts that are allowed to send mass emails. That's a Microsoft thing. So whoever is managing your Microsoft account can probably tell you the email addresses that are allowed to send mass emails, but it won't ever be blank, Jordan. It's always going to be some account in there, whether it's you or a generic email address that sends. But that's actually going to be the sender's email address. So when you receive an email, the sender's email address is who it's coming from. So that's what that email address will be. Let's see. Cool. Can you send a speaker tour or an agency fair request? I mean, realistically, you can send whatever you want out of Andar. It's just the The idea of sending out of Andar is that if you have the data in your database, you can form a segment however you want. So if you're recording the speakers in your Andar database in a particular way, if there's a flag that you can record in Andar that says that that person's a speaker, it could be a demographic, it could be all kinds of different things. You can group them together in Andar and you can send them an email. So bottom line is if you've got the data in Andar to group those people together, you can send the email out of Andar to that group of people, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answered your question, Pam. Okay, let's get back onto this screen. I want to point out a couple of things here, and then I want to I want to give a quick analogy here as well. On this screen, so this is the send email screen. You get to it by going over to communications, email, and send email. So we've created a template, we've tied that to a style sheet. We're actually ready to send the email. Sometimes your template will have all of that information in there. So you just choose your template and all of that's ready to go, right? So we're going to send this email out. It's got this particular style sheet on it. So we're ready to go. We just need to send it to a group of people. I can send it to one specific account. So if I come up here and choose, I want to send it to Nate, I can send this email specifically to Nate and to nobody else. Okay, that's perfectly fine. I can also send it to a mailing list, and this is where the data mining piece comes in. You might have a mailing list that's created by a data mining operation. Okay, so I'm just going to pick a random direct mail mailing list. So I'm going to send to everybody that's on this direct mail mailing list. There's something called a usage on there. Best way I can describe a usage is if you've got a newsletter mailing list, so Young Leaders newsletter, if you send that out every single month, you have one mailing list, but you will have 12 mailing list usages, one time for every usage, or one time every time you send that email out. January, there's going to be a usage. February, there's going to be a usage. March, April, May. So your mailing list has all of the people on it, and then the usage is every time you send to that mailing list. So again, that's a little more advanced, but the main idea is you've got one mailing list for your newsletter, or in this case, one mailing list for all your direct mail folks. We'll send it to a usage. I don't know if I have any. That's a bad example. I don't have good data in my database. I'm sorry. We'll roll with that direct mail. Oh, there we go. That's a good one. So there's a direct mail mailing list. It's telling me it's got 285 people there. I can send to all of the people on the usage, meaning all 285, or I can say I'm going to send from 1 to 100 if I wanted to do that. You could do that. In this case, it makes sense. We're just going to send it to all the usages or all the people on that usage. So that data mining operation populates my mailing list. I've got a usage there. I can click send and it will send that email out through my email server, and we get to watch the results come in and see the clicks and reads on the mailing list usage. Great. You could also send to a group of employees. So same idea here. Instead of sending to a mailing list, maybe we've got all these people that are employees of a specific company and we want to send a kickoff email to them. Choose the employee radio button, choose the organization account, and then we're automatically emailing anybody who has an employee relationship with that particular organization. It's really important to make note of that. If they have an employee relationship for that particular company, they'll get the email. If they don't have an employee relationship with that company, they're not going to get the email. So if I were to look at this company, go to relationships and employment, these are the people who would get my email in that instance, in that example. If there's anybody over here who, let's see if I have any expired folks. I don't have any expired folks on here. If one of these people was expired, so if we're going to expire bugs here as an example, So Bugs, it has an expired employee relationship. Bugs is no longer an employee. Bugs would not get this email because he does not have an employee relationship anymore with Nate's test company. So only these 4 people would get the email. Bugs would get skipped. So really important if you're going to send to an organization using that employees radio button, that you make sure that your employee relationships are up to date. But in that case, that's kind of nice because you don't even need a data mining operation. If those employee relationships are up to date, you don't need a DMO to be able to send a kickoff email to Nate's test company. You just choose that organization up here and you're good to go. It's going to send to all of those folks. The other neat part about the organization thing is you can say, I want to send to only respondents or non-respondents. So maybe you're in the middle of an e-pledge campaign and you want to say, I only want to send to people at Nate's test company who haven't pledged yet. That's the way to do it. Again, no data mining operation needed. You can send a pledge reminder out to anybody who hasn't pledged at Nate's company by plugging in that company account and choosing non-respondents. There's some filtering up here that you can do as well. It's a way to avoid needing a data mining operation to be able to send an email out to employees. So it's a pretty neat little tool if you're using Andar to send your emails out, especially for ePledge. Okay, so that's the send email. Once you send it out, I will show you very quickly what a mailing list usage looks like. So under communications, mailing list management, we've got these mailing list usages. Usages are where I mentioned that you've got all of the clicks and the reads and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't have too many that actually have legit data in here. This is an okay one. I sent an email out to whatever this usage was. It actually sent 982 emails. 18 of them bounced back. These are soft bounces, so like inbox full and all of that kind of stuff. If there's a bad email address, it shows up as invalid. But here's where you could see how many were read, how many had clicks, all of that kind of stuff. This is another one. Maybe this is a better example. You can see that it was sent to 2 people. One person read it and one person actually clicked a link on it. And if I click the display button on this, I can get some more detail on that. So if I click the email tab, there's my 2 people that it was sent to, how many people read it. If I double click on any one of these, it shows me the detail of that. So I can see that Nate read it. Even more, I can see the links down here that were in that. So there are a bunch of links in that email. I can see who clicked on what link. So if I double click this link, I can see that Nate clicked on this link twice. Again, be careful. That's not necessarily accurate. I could have clicked this link twice. That could be from a spam filter. So clicks and reads are not going to be super accurate. So just be warned. Like I said, there are 15 clicks recorded from one person, 750%. That might be legit. That might not be. Just you have to be careful with email security with those stats now. So that's all recorded on the mailing list usage. Okay. I want to take a quick look at questions, and then I promise there's a story that I want to tell you just at the very end, just to try and clarify some of this stuff. So, looks like we might be good on questions. Cool. Okay, well, if you've got questions, we've got a couple minutes left, but while I'm telling this story, you can submit some questions in, and I'll spend a little extra time answering them. I have typed this up so many times in an email. Hopefully I can explain it in real language, and maybe it'll make some sense as well, and put the thought in your head. Sending an email out of Andar is a lot like sending a letter through the postal service. When you're getting that letter, you write the letter, you fold it up, you put it in the envelope, you address the envelope, put the stamp on the envelope, and put it in the mailbox. From that point forward, your job is done. You have mailed the letter. That has no impact. Anything that you've done so far has no impact on whether or not the person actually gets your letter. It could get lost in the mail carrier's truck or bag or processing center or whatever. It may never get to your intended recipient. Sending an email out of Andar is exactly the same. You package this email, you create the content, you create the mailing list usage, and whenever you click that send email button in Andar, Andar hands that little package of emails off to your email server. At that point, Andar's job is done. As long as the email got sent to your email server, you'll see a completed job status in Andar. That doesn't guarantee that people are going to receive your email. There could be something wrong with the sender's email address where your email server refuses to send it. There could be spam settings on the recipient's email server that refuses to let people receive it. So just because there's a completed job in Andar doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get their emails as you think they would. And it goes back to that kind of analogy of the email or the mail piece of mail that you've put in the mailbox. Your email server has a lot more to do with whether or not the emails are actually going to get pushed out to the intended servers. So if you are sending emails out and you see a completed job status on that email job that you sent out, and you're not seeing people clicking and reading, and you're not seeing any of that kind of stuff come in, it could be that something happened with your email server or on the recipient side that prevented them from getting those emails. You can reach out to whoever manages your email server. They'll typically be able to do an email trace for you and find out if something happened, if it actually went out to people's inboxes. But the email server is really responsible for pushing it out to all of those, not Andar. Andar is just a tool that you can use to create an email and push that over to your email server. The email server is responsible for everything after that. So if you keep that in mind, that might help you troubleshoot. If you ever send an email, that might help you troubleshoot if something goes wrong and people aren't getting emails. So, okay, let me jump up here. Joe, you had a question. Oh, how many emails can you send in a day? Again, that's 100% reliant on your email server. Andar has nothing to do. You could send 100 million emails out of Andar. Andar doesn't care. Andar will space them out. It will send them slowly over to your email server, but the limit of how many emails you can send is really dictated by your email client. Microsoft 360 has a very specific limit on how many emails that you can send out. I believe it's 1,000. It could be 10,000. I don't know, but that's a Microsoft 360 thing. If you use something like SendGrid or any of those other services that push emails out, they have their own limits. Maybe they're limited by different tiers. So it's not a limitation in Andar. It's a limitation by whatever email service you're using. If you're not using Microsoft 365, if you're using an on-site hosted email server, your limits are going to be likely much, much higher. Microsoft 365 really, really limits how many emails they allow you to send out. So that is a big limitation with Microsoft 365.